Now we're
I don't
live.
know.
Meeting
now we
is now
watch our
starting on
language.
live on Facebook. Oh,
All right, let me check my other device and see what we look like here.
Okay, all righty.
Oh Lord. Buffalo
Whee!
Dreams event.
Oh, okay, and got the, we're live. Yay! All right, well, hello everybody. It's Wendy of Mystic Moon Cafe, and tonight we have Glenda Clemens and Sonia Jorgensen, and we are going to have a little talk about shamanism and some of the books that Glenda has done, including Buffalo Dreams and now is it Paradigm or Paradigm?
the Paradigm are the first 7 books, the Paradigm books.
Okay.
And in those books, there's a little bit about core shamanism, but mostly it's about a group of friends down in Southeast Oklahoma and how their lives change over time.
Cool. Okay, guys. Sonia, would you like to introduce Glenda since you've been friends for so long and what have you?
Absolutely. Glenda Clemens is near and dear to my heart. I met her and her husband, Doc Clemens, as we call him, when they worked with me for the VA. She is a nurse practitioner and provided care to our veterans as well as her husband. And that's how we first met. And then we stayed in contact, and she does life coaching and started writing books. When she retired, she became an author, and her second career, second wind, and has written how many? 9 books now?
I've written, 9 books.
9 books now that she's written and released. And in the course of that, has just recently released a book that features a woman named Tia, who learns about core shamanism. And that was another point that Glenda and I connected over, was shamanism. And so we had one other common thread to tie together, which was really cool. So my dear friend Glenda Clemens, author, shaman, nurse, and just all around cool chick.
Very nice. Welcome.
How's that?
Thanks.
Well, that was lovely.
Yeah, it was.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're both out on the West Coast, correct? In Seattle type area? Okay.
Yeah.
Fires, has the smoke gone down, or the embers, threats?
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, we're having nice weather, lots of rain, lots of cool, and I love that.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
It's finally raining a lot, so the fires are getting under control. It was pretty bad there for a while, yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was. But, well, where would you all like to start this evening?
I want to read to you my horoscope today.
Please do.
Okay.
Now, I'm just going to say right up front that I don't necessarily buy into horoscopes, but once in a while, one comes through my email that just fits perfectly. And so here you go. I'm a Libra, by the way.
Okay.
You may feel
another connection that we have.
That's another connection. You may feel quite communicative today and desirous of good conversation. To meet this very real need, you may find yourself engaging friends, relatives, and colleagues in chats that cover a wide range of topics. How's that?
Excellent. They finally got it right. You know, you throw it.
Finally got it right.
Sooner or
on
later,
exactly the right day.
I love it. Well, I want to ask, so I'm really excited about your authorship. This, I mean, for me, this is like, you know, working with you as a nurse, and then now, you know, getting to read your books as an author. I kind of wanted you to share what brought you to the decision to finally start to write.
Well, it's interesting. My granddaughter, who is 10 years old, she and I were talking about this last night. She wants to write stories, but she's worried about what other people will think about what she writes, and will they quit liking her if they read her stories. And I appreciate that, because that's the key for me. I wanted to write all my life and have done a lot of essays and a lot of journaling and a lot. I had cracked Nirvana that I did some a lot of blog posts on.
Mhm.
But when I first really thought about it was, I was about my granddaughter's age and I read Little Women. Now, I've read that book probably 5, 6, 7, 8 times. And always because I loved Jo.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
the battles she had to go through to get her stuff published at a time when women just should not ever write. And so, yeah. So when I met David and we got married and life started happening, it was really obvious that I needed to do something to make money. So I became a nurse because you can always get a job. It didn't matter where we were in the country. I could get a job and it would be somewhat good pay. Then all the doubts set in and I got kind of worried because I was an LPN and I'd had an opportunity to go to college when we were first married and David was in Vietnam, but there was just a little too much marijuana in my life and I didn't have the good sense to drop out of college. So I wound up with a like 1.3 or 1.6 grade point average for that first year of college. which also included me flunking swimming class. But
Oh,
how do you do that?
How do
I
you
can
do
do
that
it.
without drowning?
Yeah,
I think I'd be the only one.
yeah. So as time went on,
pull your ass out. That's it.
That's right. So
mhm.
as time went on, I went to college and took a few courses here and there. But I really could not enroll in anything very serious until I did something about that grade point average. And I even offered to pay somebody to let me into the College of Arts and Sciences. And the man said to me, and this is at the University of Oklahoma, I'm going to pretend you did not utter those words and we'll neither one of us go to jail. He said, I'm going to send you over to the College of Liberal Studies. And they work with women like you who are not idiots, but played one in their youth. And so I went to the College of Liberal Studies and learned so many different things, so many different thoughts, so many different ways of being and the social structures of how we got where we are. A whole lot of stuff that I really, really loved. But there wasn't a job at the end of that could make me any money. And I had kids that needed to go to college. So I got my bachelor's degree in nursing. My LPN counted for the junior year. And so I did in 1 year, I got my bachelor's degree in nursing. And then the next year I started my master's degree in nursing. And that's how I became a nurse practitioner and how Sonia and I wound up meeting.
Very neat.
It was very neat. Mm-hmm. When we moved out here to North Bend, I really just was feeling like, okay, I've got the perfect job. I've got the perfect house. I've got the perfect husband. My kids are perfect. And I'm bored to tears. And so I started the blog Cracked Nirvana. And from there, I realized I really do just want to go back to writing. And that's how it happened. It just happened that way.
That's awesome.
So now I play with my imaginary friends all day. They tell me lots of shit and I turn it into stories.
Perfect. So there.
So that's it.
I love it. So in this one that we just read, Buffalo Dreams, the one that just released, you approach the topic of course shamanism. And so that was, I mean, cool for me. I assume cool for many other people too. So tell me a little bit about how you and I'm going to keep calling him Doc Clemens. I'm sorry, it's habit.
That's okay. That's okay. I still call him Lardass, but you can call him Doc Clemens.
Oh, I missed that. I missed that around the corner. Yeah, how did that come into your lives?
Yeah. So the deal is, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. The Buffalo Dreams is the first book that core shamanism is the centerpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But starting with the Bell Paradigm and on through the other books, core shamanism becomes a part of the lives of the people's stories. So this isn't the first introduction I've made to this.
Okay.
However, in the Buffalo Dreams, it's the first book called The Shaman Chronicles, book number 1. And I wanted in this book to be really clear about core shamanism, what it is, and all of that sort of stuff. So to go back in history and how I got involved with core shamanism, I could tell you the long story or the short story, whichever you'd prefer.
We've got time.
The long story is
Yep.
that when our oldest daughter was 15, her school was going to be shutting down in the spring, and she had enough credits to graduate before the spring semester. So at age 15, she graduated. She wanted to go away to college. Not being the brightest two adults in the room, my husband and I said, well, if you're going to college, we're going to send you to a girls' college, a girls only college. And so we took her to Stevens College for Women in Columbia, Missouri, not remembering that a few blocks away were the dreaded Missouri University folks. Dreaded only because of basketball and football, but otherwise they're fine
Rivals.
folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are a whole lot of young men who are ready for girls. But nonetheless, on the way home from taking her to Stevens College for Women in Columbia, Missouri, and I'm driving back to Norman, Oklahoma. It's almost from Kansas City to Norman is a 6-hour drive.
Okay.
About the time I got out of Columbia, it started snowing. And I had to be in Oklahoma the next morning. I didn't have a choice about that. I had to be. So I passed a shopping center, pulled in, and went into the Barnes and Noble. And I said to the young man who greeted me, and damn, do I wish I knew his name because he changed my life. I said, I've heard about books on tape. You guys now know them as audio tapes, audio books.
Audible or whatever.
Then
Yeah.
they were books on tape. And he said, yeah, what do you like to listen to? I said, I don't know. I've never listened to one. And he says, oh, I love them. I said, what's your favorite one? And he says, Joseph Campbell, the Bill Moyers interview, Man and Myth. And it's exactly 6 hours long. So I bought those 6 cassettes and went back to my car, and across the snowy Kansas plains, I listened to Joseph Campbell and Bill Moyers discuss Man and Myth. I was blown away. I wore that set of tapes out, got another one, wore that set of tapes out, and by then Audible had it as a download. And it turns out I can listen to that as many times as I want to without wearing anything out. But in that, well, for the first time in my life, I began to feel there might be something in that spiritual connection that wasn't religion. There might be. And it was a year or so later that David came home one day and he says, you know, Mariel, that social worker at the hospital, she invited me to come to a drumming circle. And I said, oh, okay, cool. And I said, but I've got, at this time I was studying novel writing. I said, I've got to have this thing ready Monday morning, the first 200 pages of my novel. So, and I'm behind the 8 ball on this. So he decided he would go to the drumming circle. It turned out to be 2 days, which is great because he was out from underfoot for 2 whole days. He came home after the second day and said, well, it wasn't exactly drumming, but I think you might like it. And he talked about it, and it was core shamanism. And from there, the following May, when it was our wedding anniversary, we went to Austin, Texas, and went to the core shamanism class that was being held in Austin, Texas. So it's not an accident that the first shaman book, the first core shamanism class that Chloe teaches is in Austin, Texas. That's where I got my start in core shamanism.
Yeah, if I can ask,
yeah,
core shamanism, is that just the basics of shamanism?
No.
And then, oh, okay. Would you explain that for me then?
Let me explain core shamanism as opposed to other shamanism.
Okay.
This is not Native American. This is not Native Irish. This is not Celtic. This is not Siberian. This is not Norwegian. It's not South American in any shape or form. It's not any African or Australian shamanism. Michael Harner was an anthropologist, and he, in his travels around the world, realized that every culture had a shamanic basis for spiritual enlightenment and for healing and for a deeper knowing. And so he began to take recordings and practices and put it all together. And Michael Harner at the Foundation for Shamanic Studies came up with the concept of core shamanism, which is the basic fundamental core summary of all shamanic practice around the world. I wanted to be really clear about that part, and I'm really, really glad you asked that, because misappropriation of cultural heritage is something that would really, really, really not be good. It would be hard on my spirit, and it would belittle or demean other people's culture. So this is something that is only the core shaman practice. Much of it is very much like very deep meditation, except that we have power animals and we go with intention for a specific problem or specific question. After I studied in Austin, I went on to study with Sandra Ingerman. I learned with her about nature and the connection with core shamanism with nature and the earth. I learned shamanic healing from Sandra Ingerman. And that was in Albuquerque. The other one was in Tyler, Texas, but the healing class was in Albuquerque. And then, which of course is in one of my books, or it's actually winds up being in the next book, The Salmon Dreams. But from there, then I wanted to do coaching and counseling. And I spent a week in California with Sandra Harner, Michael Harner's wife. And there I got to meet Michael Harner and chat with him for a few minutes and learned shamanic counseling out there. So that's it. That's core shamanism in a very, very tiny nutshell. Mm-hmm. And so the effort for the first book was to introduce the reader to core shamanism, but also give them an idea of how it works, what the methods are and how it works.
Sure, makes sense. But shamanism gets discussed on the show quite often, and I've talked to several various nationalities and mm-hmm. Areas there.
Yes.
But, we all agree that shamanism's probably been around since the very dawn of man in one form or another. So, yeah, cultural appropriation or misappropriation would definitely, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of honoring it, but I guess mine is not always the popular opinion.
Well, it depends on which side of that fence you're on.
True.
The cow who is in his pasture looking over at the horse in her pasture thinks that grass must be better than the grass I'm eating. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to go over there and take her grass. To me, that's a down and dirty explanation of cultural appropriation.
Right. Mm-hmm.
No, you need to chew on your grass and she's going to chew on her grass, and that's that. And I know that's a silly kind of way to put it, but it still is that, for example, I don't call myself Christian. I try very hard to follow the teachings of Jesus, but I am not a Christian.
I understand that. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not Buddhist, but I try to follow the precepts of Buddhism. Other than that, I can't do without red meat. That's just, forget it. I'm a steak and potatoes woman. So I think that it's up to each and every one of us to find our own spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
And once we find that spiritual path, we stick with the truth of the path that's in front of us. Joseph Campbell, that's what he meant when he said, follow your bliss. When you see the path in front of you, that is true to everything, every fiber of your being, that's what you walk. You don't look around and look for another path. You're on your path.
Yeah.
When you're on your path, you are in bliss. And I have to tell you, writing these books has been the most fun I've ever had in my life, short of, some bedroom, that kind of stuff. Short of that, writing books.
I was going to say short of working with me, but it's okay.
Oh, well, that was fun too.
If I'm third or fourth on there.
Yeah. There are some other things I've done in my life that were really a lot of fun. But the most fun I can have by myself is writing.
Right, there you go. And I love it. I love what you said, because I've read just about everything Sandra Ingram has written, and I would love to learn from her in person. So
she's amazing.
That's so cool to hear, because she comes through on the pages of her books that way.
Yes.
And something that I've kind of adopted from her and others that practice shamanism, in the interest of cultural misappropriation, is that I don't call myself a shaman. I call myself a shamanic practitioner. I practice shamanism. There are core fundamental elements of shamanism that I believe are part of our DNA, ancestral heritage, perhaps, that we have echoes of, memory of, that when we journey and we travel, we can get back in touch with. And so for me, I feel like we all kind of meet in the same pasture, if you know what I mean. And that, in your pasture analogy, in some regards, when we come to that place, that collective unconscious is what some people refer to it as. And so those lessons kind of come through for all of us. And that's, although I haven't followed a true kind of prescriptive core shamanism path, a lot of my influences are in that field, in that belief, I guess, for lack of a better word, of how to practice it, is that I'm tapping into some universal truths and some universal connections that we all share. They just sort of have come naturally to me, spontaneously to me, in my effort to reach out in that way. And so I totally resonate with that.
Yeah. And that is, I think, the really important point there is that you found your spot within core shamanism. I think all of us have this yearning towards a knowing of the why for of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of reasons why I'm not a Christian, but fundamental to that is I didn't need a murder victim on a cross to make up for any wrongdoing I do. That was my fundamental bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so when I found core shamanism, I was able to release a lot of that. I find myself, I really want to be a kind woman. And I really want to be a good woman. It turns out I have feet of clay. They're only size 7, but they're still feet of clay. And they're big enough to trip me up now and again. And so I was talking with my husband not long ago about, I was judging this group of people or this group of people, and how can they believe that? And how can they believe that? And then I stopped and I said, I guess I should just shut up. I talk to animals and believe what they have to say.
Some people might consider that a little strange too.
Yeah. So
embrace your strangeness.
Embrace it. Embrace it. And when you're talking about, when you finding your bliss, walking your path, and it's for me, a big piece of the work that I do with people through shamanic work and others is finding your truth and owning it. You know, it's kind of that
Yeah.
same thing. What is your truth? And walk
Yeah.
in that and own it, work it. You know, it's not, and I mean, back to what your granddaughter had said, it's not about what other people think or how they might judge you or whether they like you for it or not. I mean, you know, there's so many things that, you know, the duality of my life that I know you understand, Glenda, and that, you know, during the day, I am one person at work, you know, and then
Yeah.
outside of that, there are other elements of me, and I have to compartmentalize a lot of that stuff because of my
Yes.
job. However, you know, they are who I am, you know,
That's
and
right.
it can make it difficult sometimes. I mean, but
It
you know,
really can.
it's making peace with those dualities that we all have in our lives sometimes, and realizing that I am both things and I can be both
Right.
things.
One of my favorite things of recent time, I went through the feminine power courses, went through several of those with Claire Zammit, and my goodness, is she ever marvelous. And it helped me to get my feet under me about just being me. And this is after I started core shamanism. There is never a path that doesn't have stumbling blocks.
Right.
You know, and there's never a path that everything is perfect. The meaning of the bliss is not perfection. The meaning of the bliss is no matter how awful it is, you're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing your own thing.
Your truth. Yep.
And you're living your truth. And so when we were talking about the writing, I looked at her and I said, there are 8 billion people in this world. Surely one of them wants to read your story. At least one out of that 8 billion people wants to read your story. And she looked up at me and she said, yes, and they want to read yours too, Grandma.
Oh.
Now you see there?
Now, in the chat, Lorian says, just so Grandma knows, Sagan looks at the screen when you are talking.
Yeah! What a boy! Yay, Sagan! Sagan is our newest grandchild. He came into the family through adoption and is just marvelous, And he thinks I'm marvelous. And so it's a really good thing, you know, a love fest kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and Lorian, oh my goodness. She's the daughter that I took off to Columbia and left her with all those boys. Being such a silly woman. Woo.
Now
But she came through it in flying colors.
Was that Independence Center that you stopped at the Barnes and Noble?
I don't know because I'm not from Kansas City and it was just on the interstate and there was this great big huge shopping center and this young man in Barnes and Noble gave me the key to the rest of my life and he didn't know it and I didn't know it. I wish I knew his name.
Isn't it amazing how those interactions happen? They land right at those junctures when you need them. I love it. Never, you know, and that's something else to tell people, never dismiss or blow off, you know, the butterfly effect to some degree. You know, these small things can happen and can be, you know, these small gifts can be dropped in front of you in your path that may seem trivial at the time, but might, you know, completely change your direction. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
In the first set of books, the Paradigm series, I was a little nervous when I started writing those because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to write, just that I wanted to write. About halfway through writing those 7 books, I began to get a feeling of what I really wanted to write. But in that first book, my darling daughter-in-law said to me, she says, oh, I was a little embarrassed at times. And so I think that's terrific. But it means also that I told the truth. You know? And who doesn't want to make love writing on the Milky Way? I mean, you know, who doesn't want to do that?
Who doesn't?
But the Paradigm series, what I wanted to tell you girls was how I came up with the name, the Paradigm series. When David was doing his duty and was in Vietnam, I was being a silly girl Now we were married, but I was still a silly girl. And I started hanging out with some kids who smoked a lot of marijuana. And night after night, we would smoke marijuana. Well, one night, this one boy got really, he's a real nerd. I mean, he made nerds look really cool. He was such a nerd. Okay. And so we're sitting around and we're all laughing and giggling and we're eating brownies and we're smoking the weed. And he says, I know, let's play a game. Let's play a game about our favorite word. And everybody just kind of looked at him and he says, I'll start, I'll go first. And he said, my favorite word is paradigm. And I looked at him and I said, well, I've got 20 cents if you need it. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so years went by and I finally figured out what the word paradigm meant. And it's at its most basic, it's a map of how whatever is happening in your life is happening. This is your paradigm. This is where you are. You can't use a Boston map to get anywhere in Norman, Oklahoma. It just won't work. You know,
Right.
you got to follow your path, kind of thing. Well, a year ago, I went to Oklahoma to visit my mom, and maybe it's about a year and a half ago, to visit my mom and siblings. And I listened to Michael Harner's book, Cave and Cosmos. Highly recommend that book. And so I'm listening while I'm driving around Norman in Oklahoma City. And this woman is sitting there in the audience. And I don't remember all the backstory for exactly what was going to happen, but Harner was leading a journey with the whole crowd. And before he started, he said, think about what paradigm you are seeking. What is your paradigm? And this woman in the audience starts jumping up and squealing and carrying on. And she's got 2 dimes in her hand that she didn't have in there before. Yes. And in that moment, I felt vindicated. Someone else thought it was 2 dimes too. So I highly recommend that book. And Amanda Folger is the narrator, and she is fabulous as a narrator. But the core shamanism starts in the Bell paradigm, and it goes through a little bit in all of the books after that. And Sonia, this is what you and I talked about before I started writing, the using core shamanism as a pathway for some of the vets who go to these horse places for equine therapy. And
and that's exactly what my plan is. Yeah.
And so I wrote it all out in story form for you.
Thank you. I'll read it so I have a guidebook.
There you go. Well, maybe not much of a guidebook, but it's a great story.
So I just posted in the chat the link to that book on Amazon. That's why I kind of keep looking down as I'm pulling some of these things that you're discussing, some of these authors.
Oh, okay.
I'm pulling up and adding into the chat room.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I added a link to the Buffalo Dreams, so.
Good, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And people, if they are so inclined, can always go on Goodreads and look me up. You can go on Facebook and look for Glenda Clemens, and my Facebook page is there with all my links, plus some other esoteric stuff that may not have any meaning to anyone, but it's there. And on Amazon, all you have to do is search Glenda Clemens, and my author page will come up as a choice, and all my books are there too.
That's
We're trying to cover them.
Yeah. So now David is also narrating books.
Oh.
And he's almost finished with the editing of the narration of Buffalo Dreams. So that should be coming out in a few weeks.
Nice.
Takes about a month for Audible to say, yeah, this is all right.
They have to go through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got to check for those swear words that we're trying to not say.
Well, you know, damn,
They slip
they
in.
happen in those books too.
So speaking of your books, so we can talk about your books a little bit. So Buffalo Dreams is the one that just came out, and I finished. So it was fast, perfect environment to be reading it. So Tia, your main character, tell us a little bit about her and how she came to life for you.
Well, I wanted to write some of my childhood experience, but fictionalize it. And I did not want these things to happen to that main character.
Okay.
Because I'd already written a main character in the father paradigm that experienced some of my childhood abuse. But I wanted Taya to be a girl who really was very, very smart and who had worked really hard to get her degrees and yet felt a little adrift. And you get that feeling from her changing majors or from her not being really 100% sure about going to Albuquerque and what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden her mother dies. And in the most likely place to die in Oklahoma in the wintertime in an ice storm. And that's on I-35 going through the Arbuckle Mountain Pass.
Mm-hmm.
It's treacherous, as one character says, even in sunshine on a dry day. In the wintertime in a storm, it's a death trap.
Yeah.
And suddenly Taya finds that she didn't know her mother as well as she thought she did. But her mother's left her 28 journals to read.
Ooh.
One of the things that I try to do with the names of my main characters especially is that I try to have their name fit the personality they have, but on a deep level. And I explain that in the Buffalo Dreams. Taya means goddess. It's Greek for goddess. And Karina, her middle name, means she who walks the road. So it's the goddess who walks the road. And when I had that image, then it became pretty clear that Taya was going to be a character who she might not understand everything, but she sure as hell gives a damn about everything. And she may not know for sure who loves her or who doesn't, but she knows for sure who she loves, and that's her mother. And even though she doesn't understand how everything came to be, and she's a little pissy about it from the first, it really turns out to be okay. Mm-hmm. It doesn't save her in any way, but it becomes okay.
Right.
And she begins to understand her mother's choices by reading the journals. And I will tell you frankly that in every book I write, some of the horror stories are ones I've either heard or experienced or friends of mine have experienced. Okay. I mix them up and mess them up. But I have this strong feeling about women in their own power and not letting it get taken away by anyone, a man or a woman. No one should be able to take that power from you. So that we are all goddesses standing in our own power, walking our own path. We are all Taya Karina. And then at the same time, there's the other story going of Chloe, the shamanic teacher, coming from Ireland with her head kind of up her butt about this woman that she's fallen in love with. And then she finds out maybe the reason I'm here isn't for this woman, but for something bigger than me, bigger than what I envisioned. And that's what happens with Chloe through the book. She becomes something bigger than she thought she would be.
I love it. I like how you tie each of the character storylines together. Initially, you get to meet each individual kind of star of the show in their own elements, separate from each other first, so that you get a feel for who they are apart. And then you bring them all together and then who they are as a unit starts to form, and how they all work together and work within each other, and how some of those surprise relationships come up, to be as well, how things can start to connect, and you connect the dots, and between the journals and then the meetings and interactions and stuff, and it's well done. And in
Thank
this
you.
book you do talk a lot about, I mean, you're not talking a lot, but really touch on subjects that are taboo. I mean, you
Yeah.
come, we run across, the relationship between the two women, the relationship between the mother and the sperm donor, the
Yes.
relationship between the sperm donor and the other woman, so the you're touching topics that are tough, especially considering, and I don't want to give too much away, but considering what the sperm donor does to the mother multiple times, that
Yes.
impacts in a way Taya's life, in a big way, and
Yes.
how her life is formed for her as she grows. The choices
Yes.
that her mother makes on her behalf are influenced by that interaction. And
Yeah.
so you're touching on some big stuff, some deep stuff in this story. So can you tell us a little bit about where that kind of came from, as far as wanting to bring forward these topics and put them in
And
this
that
book?
happens in all of my books. The impetus for putting that out there is that when you're a preacher's kid in Southeast Oklahoma, in a small church of less than 50 people, the preacher is God. And he can do whatever he wants to do. He is God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard enough all by itself. But then when he abuses the love and trust of his children and his wife, and still he's perceived as God. And still family members will say to you things like, "Oh, Glenda Jean, hun, he didn't mean nothing by that."
Right.
"Oh, I know that's what you say, but I didn't see it or hear it, so I can't say that it happened. It maybe didn't ever even happen." Women are not heard. Women, children are not even seen. And the only reason some people look at us is if we have the right body, the right social graces, and we don't say shit, fuck, damn, piss, hell, screw ever.
Nope.
Which is why I say them all the time. And besides being fun.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I don't have a big stage to talk about women's issues. But I remember reading The Bluest Eyes Ever. I remember reading stories about girls in Africa being mutilated and how much they touched me. At the same time, girls in America are mutilated not only at a physical level, but as a spiritual level. We are never enough. We are never beautiful enough. We are never smart enough. We will never be as smart as we could have been if we had only had a penis. We can't be worthy unless we have a penis.
Right.
I remember that in 1980, I had the money to buy a car. My husband agreed with the car I wanted to buy. They wouldn't even let me drive the damn thing without him there with me.
Wow.
That's in 1980.
Yeah.
That's not that long ago, kids. That's not that long ago, children that are listening in.
No,
1980.
it's
Yeah.
really not. It's shortly
No,
before
it's
I
not.
went into high school.
It's not
Yeah.
that long ago.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that was after my second child was born. That was what, 5 years after
Wow.
3 years after my second child was born.
Mm.
And so these women issues that are core to every single story I write are there because it's still a problem.
Mhm.
I wept when she died. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg died,
Oh.
I wept because another safety valve is gone for women.
Yep.
And if it's gone for women, it's damn well gone for people of color. And it most certainly is gone for children. Count on it. So I write these things that are women's issues because they are still an issue. And because I've experienced these things personally. I have taken care of patients who've experienced these things personally. I've had friends and relatives and neighbors talk about what they've finished, that they have felt and had happened to them personally. These are not news stories. These are not even unique stories.
No.
These are the stories of the lives we lead. In just a few weeks, I'll be 70 years old, and I'll be bloody damned if I'm not going to spend the next 25 years writing about and for women. That's my goal in life. Bring this forward. The shamanism is integral to my life, and it becomes integral to my characters' lives. But frankly, from a publishing point of view, it's a bit of a trick. People will pay attention and maybe read the book and understand the deeper meaning of what's going on in these women's lives.
Right.
I hope that wasn't too much of a sermon.
No, not at all. The thought
it's
that
true.
hit me, I hope they don't ban them in certain places, like rural Oklahoma and the other
Places
Bible
that need them.
states.
The places that need them the most.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like they did To Kill a Mockingbird, or excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm going to spit on myself now.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Just wipe the screen off and don't worry about it.
There we go. Yeah. There's a bottle of Windex here somewhere.
Yeah.
So
But,
anyway, that's my passion around these books. And you will
Okay.
find that in every book, there is a different sermon I want to give, but I want to give it in a fictional form, not only because I don't want to hurt anyone else ever, but also because I want you to read it and enjoy it, but not ever forget that I not forget that I wrote it. That whether I wrote it or not is meaningless drivel. Never forget the story you read and what it made a difference in your life.
Yeah, for sure.
The most profound book I ever read is one that was written by a Canadian author. And it wasn't profound because it's a terrific, great book. It's not. And it got panned in a lot of places. But it helped me figure out that I could rescue myself. I could get out of it. And the name of the book is High Bright Buggy Wheels. You won't find it on Kindle, but you might find, I did find it, the daughter of the woman who wrote it. Do what?
I'm going in. High Bright
Buggy Wheels.
eBay. Yeah.
And it was about a girl raised in a severely religious community and how she escaped. And my literature teacher in high school made sure I read that book. I had guardian angels all through my life that made sure I made it through. And that book is one that helped.
You talk about the core shamanism, and how important it is in your life. And one thing that comes through in this book is the power animal for Taya, the white buffalo.
Yeah.
And I have a memory of working with Nurse Glenda Clemens with a white buffalo on her desk.
Do you remember what her name is?
No.
Manu.
Oh yeah, Manu. Okay, thank you. I was like, oh crap.
And do you remember what my nurse's name was?
Yes.
Manu. Manuela Cooper and I bonded instantly.
Yep. And you know what's funny about Manu is that I just got back in touch with her. She just reached out to me yesterday for the first time. And when did I work there? 10 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
And
back when we were young.
Back when we were young and full of ideals.
Way back when.
Yeah. Well, but yes, and so she and I bonded almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I said, do you pronounce your name Manuela or Manuela? And she says, Manu.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, really? And she said, yes. And I said, that's my power animal's name. And that's why that's in the first book.
That's awesome. That is so cool. Yeah, I just got a hold of her, or she got a hold of me, I guess, yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, wait, how did that all start? Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, the white buffalo, that is my power animal. My power animal happens to be male. Tea's happens to be female. Manu can be male or female name. And so, yeah.
Nice. And
That is
on the cover, Buffalo Dreams, do you have your drum close by? The one that you, didn't you paint it? Did you tell me that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't mind to get up and go get it. It's in another room, but I'll go get it for you if you want.
If it's not too much trouble, that would be lovely.
That would be
No,
neat. Yeah.
I'm still a walkie-talkie, so.
Okay.
All right.
That's a nursing home phrase.
Yeah. You're not a fall risk? Are you sure you're not a fall risk? Okay. I found a copy of the book on Amazon, so I'm putting that in the chat right now.
Oh, excellent. Aida's in there cheering Glenda on.
I see that.
Mm-hmm.
The Humane Society wouldn't let her hold a kitten without her husband's permission.
Yeah.
It's crap like that makes me wonder about the world. You know, I was, a couple of years ago now, we borrowed a trailer for a flatbed to carry a car on, and I backed it back around down a driveway and then a 90-degree turn under a covered awning, the carport to park it in. I get out of the car and my husband is standing there with his friend and they're chit-chatting, and another friend of the friend was there on the property, and they're just, kibitzing. I get out of the truck and I walk around the corner. All of a sudden he stops. He goes, "Holy shit, that's a woman." And I'm like, "Where?" "Oh, you're right. Holy crap. I'm female."
Imagine that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, maybe a double salute.
My husband looked at this poor man like, "Oh, you poor man." That was not
Run fast.
Your life will never be the same.
Yeah, he's like, "It was nice knowing you. You have a good day, sir."
Yeah, so this is my drum.
Ah, it's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
And my friend in Norman, Oklahoma, named Kim Burks, I don't know if she's watching this or not, but she helped me. She taught me how to paint and helped me with the layers and what all I had to do. But that's my drum.
Gorgeous.
That is just, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Does it have a name?
No, just Buffalo.
Some people do.
Buffalo.
Some people do. I haven't named mine yet either. Mine is Horsehide.
This is my other buffalo that I treasure. When we went to Tyler, Texas, this was when we went to Austin, Texas, and we were on a break between sessions, and I was busy talking with the instructor, and David went outside to walk around, and he found this rock and he stuck it in his pocket. When we got home, he went back to the bedroom and got out the paints and painted these lines. This is my other buffalo that I'm very proud of.
Love it. That's
very neat.
Memory. It's a great memory.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely.
Cool. So tell me about my favorite character.
Your favorite character?
My favorite character. I want to hear about Auntie.
Oh, isn't she terrific?
I love her. Can she move in with me?
I was wanting her to move in with me, but she says she's happy right where she is.
I need an auntie. I need somebody to cook those meals that you describe in that book. Holy crap. I'd like a dinner like that.
Well, she's sort of an amalgam between my grandmother, Casey, my mother's mother, and a lady called Adele Lloyd, who lived who her husband was the, what do they call that? You know, it's a horse place. He's the guy that kind of runs the place.
Oh,
Oh, like the
the
stables or
No, the whole ranch.
like a
Anyway,
dog ranch
foreman.
or
He was the
ranch
foreman
foreman. Oh, I see. Okay.
for this horse ranch just west of Norman, Oklahoma. And it was called the Travis Horse Ranch. And Adele and OB lived in a house next to us that we rented from the ranch. And our daughter, Lorian, who has that baby, Sagan, who watches Grandma talking, she was 9 months old the day we went to look at that house. Now, David's in medical school and he's totally exhausted. And I'm working 40 hours a week. I'm exhausted. I've got a baby, but we need to move because they're upping our rent and we're just barely making it as it is. So we needed to move. And this house on this horse ranch was $130 a month, all bills paid.
Oh, nice.
Which was fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's laying on the floor of this big room that's a kitchen, living room, and dining room kind of room. It's about 15 by 30 feet. Okay. So he's laying on the floor. Lori crawls over to him, pulls herself up with him, and then takes off walking. Her first steps were that day in that house.
Awesome.
And Adele, who was the foreman's wife, she adored Lorian and Lorian adored her. And Lorian called her Madelle.
Mm.
And so Madelle and my grandmother kind of put those two women together. And that's Auntie Beulah.
Auntie Beulah.
Do you remember what Beulah means?
No.
The good and prosperous land.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's so
So
cool.
Auntie Beulah, she is everything that's good. She's everything that's loving. She's everything that's kind. And she kind of becomes the fulcrum holding Taya's life together.
Yeah. She's kind of that matriarch role for the whole crew, for all of them.
For all of them. Yes, they all start calling her Auntie.
All of them. Yeah, they all start congregating together and come together, and
yes,
she stitches them all together, leads them through. It's great.
Yeah.
She's a cool character.
I like her a lot. And the way she wears her hair is actually not how my grandmother or Madelle wore their hair, but a nurse I worked with when I first got married to David at Four Seasons nursing home in Norman, Oklahoma. She had hair that went past her butt. And she was a young woman, and she would braid that hair and wrap it around and around and around on the top of her head, and it looked like a crown. And she'd perch her little nurse's hat right there on top of it.
I love it.
So Auntie Beulah, her hair is from that nurse.
From that.
Okay.
That's so cool. Oh, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm. It is.
So what comes next after Buffalo Dreams? Is that Salmon Dreams?
Salmon Dreams is next, and the characters and the family dynamics continue. Mm-hmm. And it gets kind of brutal in places. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at the rough draft I sent you, but it gets kind of brutal. Brutal enough that one day when David was back here editing, after about a couple of hours, he came out and he just had this pale face and his eyes were big, and he said, "Are you off your meds?"
Or do we need to up them, right?
And so, no, of course I'm not off my meds. I don't even take any meds, but it was kind of shocking to him that talking about brutality and having brutality happen are two different things.
Writing brutality.
Yeah, that's a different thing. And having a woman be the antagonist, be the bad guy or the bad gal is kind of shocking. But there is a bad woman and she does some really nasty things. But the book is also about redemption. Not redemption from some guy on a cross, redemption from deep within. From deep within. All our redemption, in my opinion, comes from deep within. It's not external to us. It's internal to us. And so I really like the book Salmon Dreams. It's really, really good. And if it makes me cry the 10th or 12th time I've read it, which is about how many times we have to read these, then it's still good.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I haven't read it yet. I know you sent me the copy. I apologize. I will read it.
That's all right. We're in the process of getting ready to start editing. So hurry up and read and give us your opinion.
Yeah, I'll read fast, give you my opinion. I've been fencing, so
Oh,
I haven't had a
wow.
lot of downtime to read.
Now, I'm assuming that's not in the French.
No, that
No.
would be funner.
Yes, you're doing the post hole digging and all that stuff. Yeah, that is so
that
much
stuff.
fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah. I'm glad I finished before the deluge started, all this rain that we have now. At least I'm not digging post holes in the pouring down rain.
Oh, that's yucky. The ground's softer, but it's yucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pounding into the cement that was the dry dirt was not fun, but I don't know that it would be funner to do it into the mud. So dry dirt.
Yeah, just be clay and mud.
Somewhere in between. Yeah.
Somewhere in between would have been nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I will now that it is raining, and so now my butt's parked inside. I will definitely get it.
Good.
Exactly.
Good. I need the feedback.
Sometimes life just gets busy, though. So there you are.
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm.
So you said this is. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say you said it's going to be a trio of books.
Well, I don't know how many books.
Not sure yet.
I've started the third book, and the third book is my son's creation. He gave me an idea. He's a musician in the Seattle area, and teaches at jazz night school, but also plays with a combo. And so he gave me the idea, and it just sounded right up my alley of gruesome. So yeah.
Gruesome.
So the third book is, gosh, I've already forgotten the name of it.
Didn't you tell me? Us?
Yeah, I did tell you.
I thought
There's
so.
Buffalo Dreams, Salmon Dreams. Oh, Bobcat Dreams. How could I ever forget that? After all the Bobcat encounters I've had in this past few weeks, that was really, I just had to get the Bobcat in there. So that's where we are. And it takes place primarily in the Maple Valley, Issaquah, Sammamish, Seattle, in that kind of circle of things. So, and it has a level of brutality as well. But again, the core shamanism is the thing that binds it together, and it's core shamanism that will solve the mystery. So,
yay!
I love it. Oh,
so
I don't know about the brutality though.
Well,
read it with the lights on, or like.
Well, depends on how much you dream about what you read.
Not much usually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. So have you ever read Agatha Christie books?
Yeah.
Yes.
Miss Marple.
Okay.
She's my heroine of all heroines.
Excellent.
I write what I write because of Agatha Christie and Miss Marple. Miss Marple solves these mysteries by understanding human beings. And so one part of it might be, and this is something I just wrote today in Bobcat Dreams, it might be that you're sitting at tea. There are 4 women sitting at a table at tea. And one of the women picks up her scone and she slathers on the butter and piles on huge spoonfuls of strawberry jam. And her daughter reaches over and says, "Mama, you shouldn't eat so much strawberry jam." And if you're sitting there as the reader, you might think this daughter is being just too critical. This is an old woman. Let her have her jam. Because across the table, there's another woman that says, "Oh, don't pester her so much. Let her have her strawberry jam." Which woman sitting next to the old woman with the scone and the strawberry jam, which one is really the villain? Well, Miss Marple knows because she understands that the love of looking out after your mother's best interests, as opposed for you're ready for her to hurry up and die so you can have what it is you want. And since she's diabetic, the more jam she eats, the sooner she's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Miss Marple, understanding human behavior. It isn't necessarily that we understand all of evil, but if you've been exposed to enough evil, you understand enough about it to write a character that's evil.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But if
There's
you've been
enough red
exposed to
flags, you
love,
start
you
to
know how to
recognize.
redeem the story if you've been exposed to love.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Well, I'm excited to read that one then too. You have to send me that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's cool.
yeah.
That is so cool. I'm trying to
What
think
else,
what other
girls?
questions I had. What else did I have?
I don't know.
Do you want to know how the power animals get their names?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wikipedia. Seriously, between Wikipedia and Google, I can know anything. For
Is that
example,
Sally the salmon? Is that Wikipedia?
well, Sally chose to be the name Sally because she wanted to wear a crown. And Sally is the diminutive for princess, which in Hebrew means queen or princess.
Mm-hmm.
So Sarah is the diminutive. I mean, Sally is the diminutive of Sarah.
Okay.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I
So
love Sally the salmon.
so like today, I went to Maple Valley.
Mhm.
And I drove around every road in Maple Valley until I found the perfect house and the perfect place for the antagonist, the evil person who's going to be doing the murder and mayhem,
Mhm.
for that person to live. But I didn't leave my
Ooh.
room. I had my feet up the whole damn time. You go on Google and you go on Google Maps and you know, I found the perfect little town in Texas where one of the characters come from. And she says, oh, well, we have schools and we have a Dairy Queen and way too many churches. But other than that, there's nothing to lock your doors for. Okay.
Yeah.
So Google and Google Maps helps a lot. Wikipedia,
Mhm.
when I've decided on what the power animal is, what animal is going to be, then I go to Wikipedia and look up all the phylum stuff,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know, the family, species, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then I read through the whole page, and always there'll come something that'll flash out at me. The bobcat's name is Orena, Orena. And I can't remember what culture it is. That may also be Jewish, but it means pine tree. Well, I guess where bobcats like to be, in pine trees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, so their species. One of the characters is a chameleon, and he's one of those 3-horned chameleons. And he's full of himself. He thinks he's a big bad guy. You know, he can take on anything. His name is Owen because one of the subspecies, Owen, is in that name. So that's how I find those names.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. And so some herpetologist is going to be reading that book saying, oh, I know why she named him Owen.
You got to leave little breadcrumbs for people now and again to enjoy.
Yes, 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 yes. The other thing I hope you found in your reading of Buffalo Dreams is that power animals can become human form in the lower world, making it easier for us to interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
But they can also not do that. And so that's really kind of up to the power animal and the person whose power animal that is. And so it's kind of what they need for their own comfort. So Owen, when he stands up and he walks out of that chameleon form, and he's got these 3 horns, and he's wearing a black and gold and deep dark red leather jacket that kind of flows out behind him. So that's you know, he winds up being a painting, and he's telling his person, his human, the mistakes she's making in the paintings. So
That's awesome. Because yeah, you
Yeah.
do that very early in the book, in Buffalo Dreams. She actually, Manu actually
yes,
goes through metamorphosis.
yes,
So that's pretty cool. Yeah,
yes.
you have her
And
definitely
so
change.
if you're someone who practices core shamanism and you haven't seen your power animal got morphed
Yeah.
to their human form, ask them if they
Mhm.
will,
Yeah.
because
For
it's really kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
When my
Totally.
buffalo morphs into human, number one, he's a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, he thinks he's a tough guy. And so he tends to wear t-shirts that don't have any, sleeves. He's got lots
Yeah.
of tattoos, and he likes to stride around like he's some big,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I love it.
So
yeah, I only have one that shifts. I haven't asked the others though. I never thought to ask the others to shift. But I only have one that ever shifts, just spontaneously for the moment. So
have you
I might
traveled in
ask them.
have you journeyed in the middle world yet?
I have, yeah. And you know what? The gentleman that I journey with, I wonder if that is one of my guides that has shifted. Now that you mention that, I hadn't put that much thought into it. I was so focused on the lesson. I hadn't thought
Yeah.
about who was walking with me,
Yeah.
But in the middle world, it is a human form that walks with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I journeyed in the middle world, we were hiking in the Pecos Wilderness in New Mexico, and we were with a boy and girl group of Explorer Scouts backpacking. And Mike, one of our best and dearest friends, he and I both have knee problems. And so we tended to just, once we got started walking, we kept walking. And it was a slow and steady pace, that rabbit and hare thing. And it was, but we were so slow that it would irritate everybody else. So in the mornings, as soon as Mike and I had our coffee and a bite to eat, he and I would strike out while David and the other adults helped the kids and everybody else get the camp cleaned up and everything put away and everything stowed away. Mike and I would be going just like this. Well, we're at Lake Baldy after having gone up the day before to the top of Mount Baldy. And so Mike and I are walking and walking and walking, and we get to the point where we're supposed to stop and wait for everybody. And it's been almost an hour of walking. Mike says, I'm just going to keep walking. I'll turn around and come back at wherever the next turnoff was. Well, I just sat there and kind of waited, and this blue jay swooped down and started yammering at me. And so I just talked to him, and then he went on. And then pretty soon, here comes the blue jay again, and he's got a dead mouse. And he lays it on the trail in front of me. And then he flies off. And I'm allergic to mice. I'm not picking that up for nothing. So, and then he and another blue jay are just kind of coming along the trail side by side, yammer, 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 yammer at me. And so I started talking to him and explained to them that I appreciated the mouse, but I couldn't eat it for one thing. For another thing, I was allergic to them and it might make me really sick. So they swooped down and took it away, which I thought was kind of cool. But then about this time, David and the rest of the gang catch up with us. And David says, where's Mikey? And I said, well, he went on ahead, but it's been a while. He said he would come back. And so we stood there and waited for 10 or 15 minutes and Mikey still didn't show up. And so I said, maybe I need to journey on that. And David said, yeah, you sit down and do that. I'm going to go walk this way and Wes is going to go walk that way. But we promise we won't, at 10 minutes, we're going to turn around and come back to here. And so I'm journeying and I'm doing a middle world journey. And I know I'm doing a middle world journey. And I see Mike in the woods with his back to me. Being a fellow with a penis, you know exactly what he was doing. But I was hollering at him and he looked over his shoulder and he said, I'll be there in a minute. And so I just finished the journey and sat there waiting. About 10 minutes later, he comes waltzing up and saying, what were you hollering about? Well, I hadn't hollered out for him except in the journey.
Mhm.
And he says, I turned around and looked at you and you were standing there hollering at me to get on back here. And all I was doing was taking a leak. He had gotten off the trail so nobody could see him, so he could pee. And then he got back on the trail and came back. So that was my first
awesome.
middle world journey.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think it made any difference to Mike coming back. He was coming back already. But it was a nice experience that he recognized me. And I asked him, what the hell are you doing? I'll be there.
Oops. Yeah.
I journeyed once to help someone with soul retrieval and came back, and this was for somebody who's a sensitive. And so when I came back with piece of her soul, when I do soul retrieval, I have a wolf that joins me. And I was in the same room with her. Obviously, we were working on this journey process together, and I did something a little unique, and I asked her to meet me in the middle world so that I could reintroduce at that place, since she was also connected. And so when I came up from the lower world with that piece of her soul, the wolf was with me because he always accompanies me on these soul retrievals, but I never really talk about my power animals. That's just kind of our relationship, right? And I saw her approach and I said, can you see me? Yes. Can you see her? Yes. Which side is she on? She's on your left side. Okay. Just to confirm, you actually can see her. What does she look like to you? How is she presenting herself? And then brought them together. I said, grab her, take her, pull her into your heart space, into your chest, absorb her. And, so we were kind of having this conversation right while I was in the zone. And then when I came out of it, I pulled a couple cards for her, just to kind of talk through what next steps would be. And one of the cards had 3 wolves on it. And she goes, oh my God, I saw that one with you. And I was like, oh, okay. So, you have those moments sometimes, because she pointed, there were 3, one was red, one was brown, one was gray. And it's the gray wolf that, that and she pointed to the gray wolf. She's like, that one was there. I saw him there. He's standing next to you on your right side. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool.
It is cool. So, it is cool. And the serendipity of all of it is really affirming.
It is. It's nice to have those moments of validation, because when I first started, oh my God, talk about meds. You can get so deep into it, especially at first. And there were days when I went to my husband and I'm like, you might need to have me committed. I am not entirely sure I'm not going crazy right now. You kind of feel like you're losing it for a minute, and you're talking to yourself and you're talking to animals, and it's all in your head, and you're like, is anybody else seeing this shit? What is happening here? And so there's definitely that moment of, I think I'm going crazy and I might need to be medicated. So I had to back off for a little bit,
and the real solution I learned from my friend Mariel, the real solution is at the end of every journey, drink a great big glass of water, get your feet on the earth.
Yeah.
Walk outside.
I have to do that. I have to ground afterwards for sure.
You aren't grounded back in this reality fully. And if you aren't, then it gets to be kind of dangerous.
It is.
For you and for everyone around you. So
Yeah. Definitely grounding afterwards is key. Because it was, some of the stuff that you encounter, you're like, there's no way anybody's gonna believe this. This is not normal. But there was one I don't know if it was Sarah or who it was that I was reading, and I don't think it was Sarah Ingram. I think it might have been a different author that's also a shamanic practitioner. And she said, when I first started journeying, I thought I was going crazy. And I'm like, thank you. And she said, you know what? Yeah. Like, okay, at least we're crazy together. We can matching jackets, with the little straps, and we can hug ourselves. It'll be fine. I'll be in the padded room next to yours. But she mentioned in her book, and something that kind of resonated with me was that, so what if it's all in your head?
So what? Yes, so exactly.
What? It's the placebo effect, essentially. If it has the outcome, if it helps change your life, if it changes your framework, if it widens the path for you and makes, gives your life purpose and meaning, and you're able to walk your truth and walk your path based on this experience and heal parts of yourself that need healing. Who gives a shit where it comes from?
That's exactly
It
right.
was, it was kind of that thing where I was like, all right, so what if I'm crazy? It's working.
Yeah.
I'm
it's
healing
working.
parts of myself that needed healing, and so therefore, who cares? So yeah, it kind of helped me reconcile the crazy a little bit,
Right.
and from nursing, it's like, well, is this impacting my ability to function in society?
Right.
Harming myself or others, so it's kind of that,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
nope, I can still hold down a job, I can still balance a checkbook, and I am not running down the street naked, screaming obscenities at people. I'm not talking to them about talking animals and swimming with the fish, and so I'm good. My schizophrenia is contained.
Contained, yes. Well, and the reality is, all of us deep inside have these things pop up. Before I ever discovered shamanism, I could, if I had a problem, I could think about that problem before I went to bed. And I know everybody says you're not supposed to do that before you go to bed, but trust me, dreaming works. Dreaming is the place where it happens. And over again, I was able to solve problems that I really thought I should be able to solve, but really didn't know how to do so. One of my favorite quotes, I'm going to see if I can find it here, is about that dreaming business. Let me get to the quotes.
And anybody listening or watching, if you have thoughts or questions for anybody here, please,
oh, yes.
Please put them forth. Mm-hmm.
And Aida, no conversations about urine. Okay.
Yeah.
I know Glenda and I are nurses and we can handle that, but that was the last
Yeah.
episode.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I may not be able to find it, but anyway, it's in one of the books.
You might have sent it to me. Hold up, let me see if I can find it.
It's not in my book. It's in another author's book. But the essence of it, oh, here it is. It's from Ellie Griffith's book. She is an English author and writes about archaeology and history.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's got this character who I feel looks very much like me. She's a little bit dumpy and a little bit frumpy, but she's a really good person and really wants to be loved. So here's what the next door neighbor, who's a new neighbor for Ruth, who is the main character. And his name is Bob, and he's from Australia. In the beginning is the dreaming, and in the dreaming lies the sacredness of the earth. It is the beginning of all things, but it is not in the past. It is in the past, present, and future. When we bury them in the earth, the ancestors return to the dreaming, and in this way the circle is complete. Every place and every creature belongs to the dreaming. It is where the spirit children live before they are born, and where the dead go when they leave their physical life.
So beautiful.
Yeah, and that's the essence of what I feel. The dreaming is as important as a shaman journey.
Now, that does differ from, say, out-of-body experiences, right?
Yes, I have had a couple of out-of-body experiences, but only a couple. But
okay.
Boy, oh boy, was it different. Yeah.
Wait a minute. What about those drugs back in the, day?
Well, but that's different. A drug haze is different than an out-of-body. Trust me
Journey
on that.
quest. Yeah.
Yeah. And but having said that, anytime we touch non-reality, which when we journey, we are going into non-ordinary reality, not non-reality, non-ordinary reality. Whenever we touch non-ordinary reality, we are in a position to learn at some profound, deep spiritual level. I used to have a lot of trouble with the word God and with people talking about praying and asking God to help them and all these other things. I mean, it still is a bit of a trigger, but it was really a big trigger for a long time. Then I listened to Marianne Williamson's Return to Love. And David and I listened to it together and were profoundly moved. It was really, really a good experience. But in the opening, she says, God had a thought, and the thought was love, and the universe was born. It is that love we are constantly returning to. And that made all of the God things be okay with me. Just that one person changed my life and never had a clue she did. I know Marianne Williamson doesn't know me from Shinola, but it made a big difference in my life and how I was able to, in that moment of sitting in ordinary reality, have a non-ordinary reality experience.
And it's interesting that you talk about how she changed your life when I'm kind of seeing the parallels here too. It's just reflecting back on you being an author and the conversation you had with, even if there's one person that reads your book and is changed by it, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
You may never know if you touch someone with your writing, and you may never know if it changes their life. Maybe one of your books, Buffalo Dreams or Salmon Dreams or Bobcat Dreams, I remember,
right.
Ends up getting into the hands of someone that's like, what's this shamanism business? And they start, maybe they've got a 6-hour drive in the snow, and so they listen to Dr. Clemens, through their Audible app, talk to them about Buffalo Manu, and they start to figure out, oh my gosh, maybe there's something to this. So you never really know sometimes how you might impact someone's life. So it's kind of that same thing for being an author as well.
One of the lessons I learned from Claire Zammit was, it's none of your business what anybody else thinks about you.
It's very true.
And so if I can extrapolate that out to my books, which isn't that easy because, man, this is hard work. I work 4 to 8 hours a day writing. And so I want somebody to like it. I want somebody to read it. I want it to be out there.
Validation.
But I want validation. And yet, bottom line is, it doesn't matter whether anybody validates me. The validation is the work itself. In the end, it doesn't matter if nobody reads it, but with 8 billion people out there, at least one person's going to read it and like it.
Read it.
Yeah, exactly. And so the hard part is getting people to leave reviews. Reviews are the only way an independent author gets noticed. That's the only way. If I had a ton of money, I'd be able to hire enough publicists to get my book out there where a lot of people would read it.
Right.
Probably wouldn't still make any more money because I'd be spending all my money on the publicist. So for an independent, self-published author, the only way we get noticed is with reviews. And the more books I write, and the more people hear about the books I write, and the more people think that, well, she maybe is still crazy, but I might want to read one of her books. Yay. Yay. Yeah.
We have Carly in chat is asking or saying, animals talk to her all the time, but she usually can't pick up on more than their mood or feed me thoughts. Any advice on how to hear more or even spirit animals? Unless it's in the book, she does plan to get it. And Carly has Crimson Cloak Publishing Company, and it's for a lot of the independents and things to go through. So
sure. Well, in the Buffalo Dreams, there's a pretty good step-by-step how we do core shamanism. but it's not nearly as good as any of Sandra Ingerman's books, or Cave and Cosmos by Michael Harner, or The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner. The other one by Sandra Ingerman that I thought was really good, I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's The Beginning Shaman, or Shamanism for Beginners. Sandra Ingerman, really, really excellent book.
My favorite of hers is Walking in Light.
Walking in Light is a perfect book. Yes.
Love that one. Yeah.
Listening, Cave and Cosmos is a good book to read, but listening to it with Amanda Folger telling you, that is a superb experience. So Carly, my recommendation would be read one of the books. It doesn't matter which one, they're all very good. But also look for core shamanism courses in your area. And there are some core shamanism classes that happen online. So that's another way to do that. Or hook up with someone like myself, or my friend. Oh gosh, can you believe
that one?
Old woman forgets names.
It's on the screen. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see it. Sonia. Talk with Sonia, one of my friends I've had for years. And they either Sonia or I could guide you through the process, and we can do it through Zoom. It doesn't have to be person to person, face to face. Person to person, face to face in the same room is the easiest, but it is not the only way to do this. Sonia will do a great job of it. I would do a great job of it.
Very good.
I love it.
And thank you. Much appreciated.
There's, I was thinking too, reflecting on what you said about Christianity, because it can be such a trigger for so many people if they're raised in an environment where Christianity wasn't necessarily built out of a foundation of unconditional love, but was built more out of a foundation of subservient type belief systems.
Power for their higher ups.
Power.
Yeah, which you reflect on, in your book too, about how that was built in that small community in the book, in Buffalo Dreams too. It's kind of on that same premise.
Yeah, so, that little church actually used to exist.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, it's that so many people that I'm one of those as well that had turned away from Christianity at a young age. I would say my teen years, raised, Methodist, Protestant, Lutheran, that whole bent, hellfire, brimstone. We don't do this, we don't do that, we'll go to hell. Fear of hell is what kept you good. Not necessarily, hope of heaven, but fear of hell. So to kind of come out of that as a teenager is when I was really like, something's not adding up for me. Something doesn't seem right. How can an all-loving, all-knowing God have these other there's hypocritical lines that I couldn't follow, and so went on my own journey, my own path to find the Christianity that worked for me, because at the time I was unaware there was any other belief system out there. There's Christianity in its many forms, right? So, looking at, so I attended many different churches and read, many different books, and then started down the path of looking at the Gnostic Gospels and how deep does Christianity go, and what was it before Constantine got his hands on it, and going, digging. And for a long time, I ended up stepping completely out of Christianity and into paganism. Like I went the whole other way through this process. And so there was this pendulum effect, that I hear a lot from those that have found paganism that came from a Christian background. There seems to be this pendulum swing where they came from a very strict upbringing, a Christian upbringing of some form, whether it was, I don't know, and I'm not talking about any of these religions, but Mormonism or Seventh-day Adventists or Pentecostals, and then all of a sudden now they're pagan, Norse, they're following a totally different paradigm. Speaking of that word, they're following up not two nickels but two dimes, And so now they've swung this other direction, and there's almost this now repelling of Christianity. So now
Yes.
it's not just I walked away from it, but oh my God, there's almost like a PTSD effect, anything
Yes.
related to Christianity, right? And so you kind of balk at
Yeah.
anything that talks about that topic. And I've noticed that a lot. And I even had that reaction at first too, like,
Yeah.
but I've matured for me and my path. I feel like I've kind of matured through that and come to terms and come to peace with it. But I had a profound moment myself, kind of similar to yours. I was in Port Gamble, and if you've never been there, go. Everybody who's listening.
Where is that?
This town has been Port Gamble's on the peninsula, so it's
okay.
on the way to Port Townsend. It's you take the Kingston ferry from Edmonds. For those not in Washington State, we have that funny little panhandle, and you can hop from the big chunk of the state to the little chunk of the state, and that is where you'll get to Port Gamble. It's it was an old, like port town, like everything.
Right. Yeah.
Everything around Washington on the coast. It's a port town of some kind. Well, it's been completely restored for the most part. The remaining homes have all been restored. It is a lot of them run commercial businesses inside those homes now, but you can walk down the street as if it was 1920. Their old church has been restored, and I go there once a year to do ghost hunting. And so, because just one of the things that I do is I like to commune with spirits that have crossed over. That's one of my fun pastimes. I actually learn most of my history from those that have passed on, but that's like a whole other story. But I hated history in high school, but I'll tell you what, I learned some really cool shit through ghosts. Like, tell me about your life. So I love going every year because I feel like I always meet someone new. And so just a couple of years ago, I mean, I've made peace with Christianity. Okay, it's not my thing. It's somebody else's thing. That's totally fine. But there was still a piece of my narrative that was hanging on. Why the hell would somebody follow that shit? Why would they listen to it, preach it? There's still a piece of it buried deep that I wasn't acknowledging, that I'm like, oh no, I'm totally cool. But there was still this like hidden little piece in the corner in the dark depths that was like not cool, right? So I'm in the church, and I think churches are beautiful, and I have nothing against the building itself. But still obviously had an issue with what it stood for. I'd been there once before, and I had encountered the pastor, but I'm not going to talk to the guy. We got nothing to say to each other, right? In my mind. So then this, a couple of years after that, I'd go back into the church again. And this time I'm like, you know what? I'm going to engage. We're going to have a conversation. Because the one thing that, at least for me anyway, when I encounter spirits is all this trapping of this world is gone. And you get an instant and intimate connection. So I see them in all their layers for what they are and who they are in their life and their fears and their hopes and their dreams and their timeline. But they can also see me that same way. So there's an instant knowing that occurs, and it's an awesome connection to have. But I was a little leery to let him in. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking to a witch here. I'm sorry. How's this gonna go?
Yeah.
So I walk up to the pulpit, and I stand there, and I I open to him, and I'm like, I have some questions. You got a minute? I know you're busy, being dead and all, but I have a question. And so it actually was a profound event for me. Having this conversation with him, he said, turn around and look at the congregation. And so I kind of turned at the pulpit and looked out, and he showed me the congregants sitting there. And, you could tell there's gentlemen that work, they work labor jobs. It's very apparent by how they're dressed. And there's the wives and the children and the residents of that town sitting there. And he goes, look at them. Can you see them? And when you see spirit, you see them, and so I could again see them and their hopes and their failures and their dreams and their lives. And he goes, these people, he goes, I know there's more to it. I know there's more to spirit, and that the beyond is bigger, right? And I am happy to sit down and have that philosophical conversation with any congregant that wants to approach it. He goes, but that's not why they're here. they're not here for that for me. They're here because tomorrow her husband is going to die on the line. A log's going to fall on him and it's going to break his neck, and she has nowhere to go. She has no money now. She has no income, and she has 3 mouths to feed. What's she going to do? You know, in 2 weeks, that gentleman's going to lose his leg. That woman's going to lose a child in childbirth. You know, it's like he said, they don't need philosophical quantum mumbo jumbo from me, you know, kind of thing. He goes, what they need from me is hope.
Yep.
I am here to spread hope. That's my job. He goes, my job is not to wax, you know, poetic and be philosophical about the great beyond. That's not my job. He goes, but if one of them seeks further answers and seeks a deeper meaning and wants to talk to me about that, I am here for them to do that. But that is not my job. My job is to give them hope. That's why I'm here. And I was like, damn, that was, you know, big for me. You know, it was like, okay. Like I felt like I finally got it. I felt like I finally understood the purpose of that building and the purpose of the gentleman that stood at the front of that building. So, you're reflecting on that story, that came back to me like, yeah, no, I totally get it. That there's, over time you have those triggers, certain words and things that happen and you kind of use, but I had, having that encounter with him really helped me move through that. So sorry, I'm going on and on, but cool. It was a really cool moment.
I just typed it into the chat.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
Elizabeth Cunningham is a British author, and she wrote the Maeve Chronicles. It's a series of 4 books. I think the first one is Magdalene Rising. Not sure of that. But it's the story of Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And they're coming together, but different than anything we've read in scriptures. Now, some of what's in scriptures is in the story, but it's all a little bit different. And so it is so good. I've read the books, all 4 books, 3 or 4 times, and I've listened to all 4 books 3 times. It is so empowering for women, and at the same time, so spiritual. And it gives you a different feeling about women's role in society. And it gives you different glimpses of through history, different roles that women have played. And yet it's very uplifting as far as women and religion. So that's cool. I think your story of the ghosts in the church is phenomenal. And I love that. I think that's really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any dead spirits, but I have felt them. One time on I-40 coming from Arkansas back to Oklahoma, and we went past this one farmhouse, beautiful old craftsman style farmhouse up on a hill of green pastures and stuff. And I swear to God, you could smell the cherry cobbler and the vanilla ice cream, and you could hear all the kids running around playing, and there was nobody out there. It was just that impression of cherry cobbler, hand cranked ice cream, and kids playing, having a high old time.
That's so cool.
So that's my closest to spirit encounter.
Yeah, it's something else sometimes.
Yeah. I'm sure it is.
Prepared for it. But yeah, it's been quite an adventure talking to dead people. But yeah,
I learned so
much, though, right? Yeah. I learned so much about history. I went to one of the forts, one of the old army forts, and encountered all kinds of cool dudes who were happy to show me around and give me the stories, and it's just cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's lots of mystery out there if you just open your mind.
Yeah, there really is. There's lots of mystery.
So,
but it's, another one of those things, I'm not going to work and talking about it. This guy I talked to yesterday, oh my God, he was so cool. He's like, he was born, I think, in 1856. And, he lived till he was like 72. And he's just the neatest dude. We had the greatest conversation yesterday. You wouldn't believe it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, that won't work.
Great. That's that hug me jacket conversation again.
Yes.
We keep that to ourselves.
When I go to, say, cemeteries, which I love cemeteries, old cemeteries and things, and I can almost see the people, that are depicted on there, or, just stray thoughts start going through my head. And I always feel like, am I romanticizing this, or, or am I actually catching a glimpse of these people's lives back in the day?
Does it matter?
No.
Yeah,
No,
you got
it
this
really
little
doesn't. But
you got
sometimes
this little piece.
Oh.
Yeah, well, you get this little piece of love and joy and a little piece of knowing. And so in the long run, it really doesn't matter whether it's real or not real. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, it's, and, kind of back to that whole, when I thought I was going crazy doing shamanism, and like Glenda talked about, is, at the end of the day, how did it serve you?
Yes.
If you felt more connected to the people that had passed on, awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. And then that's what you're taking away from the experience. That's perfect. Who cares where it came from?
Yes.
And, it's when I first started talking to dead people, I was seeking some validation, because I wanted to exercise the gift a little bit, because I had, and I'd shared this with you, Wendy, when we talked to Aida. I had a traumatic experience and I'd sort of shut it down. So when I was at an age where I felt ready to reopen it again, I wanted to reach out and I wanted to seek some validation to see how I could now exercise and mold the gift in a way to be useful and not, and that wasn't really damaging, but it felt damaging when I was younger. Right. So I wanted to find a way to ease into it and learn about it and better understand it in a way that I had control over what was coming through, so that it wasn't this flood of just, oh my God, this person's about to die, And so so I actually went in search of validation, which, again, like Glenda said, it's not important, doesn't matter. What did you get out of it is really the end of the day, the story. But I ended up going to workshops with others, and we would go into a space and we would all kind of take notebooks and split apart, and there was no talking. And when everybody was taking notes and taking in the vibes, and then we would come together and read notes. And that helped me start building that validation. Like, I got this tall redheaded dude and he's angry and blah, blah, blah. And somebody else would be like, yeah, I got notes on the tall redheaded dude too. And he was standing over here. Yeah, that's where I saw him. You start pulling things like that. And it's like, okay, I feel a little bit better.
Where was the important validation?
Where was the important validation? With me.
Yes, exactly.
I felt the confidence that, and to your point, I mean, I could have built that confidence without that external validation. I could have built internal validation as well. But when I first started, I was so there was a lack of confidence for sure when it first started.
When I first started doing journey work, core shamanism journey work, a group of us would get together on Sundays and we would journey together. And sometimes we would journey about the same thing. We would have the same intention for journeying. And then we would read our journeys aloud, and it turned out that we pretty much came up with the same answers. Okay. And one of the other journeys that happened that is in the Bell paradigm, and this is a true journey. Kate was very ill and probably going to die. She asked for a power animal. I did a journey for a power animal for her, and it was a zebra. And we go to Children's Hospital and they do the bone marrow biopsy, and oh, it's just horrible. And oh, she's got to stay here in the hospital. the room's getting cleaned up. We'll come get you when it's time to take her to her room. And she's going to just stay here in the hospital. We're going to figure out the exact kind of leukemia this is. We get to the room at Children's Hospital, and the wallpaper border is zebras.
Oh.
There's instant validation for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, for all of us. It was, there's Zoe. She's up there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have gotten to a point now that I've been doing it long enough that I'm much more confident in my internal validation than I was when I started. So it
Yes.
might be that, if when you first start out, if you are looking for that to say, am I picking it up or what's going on is,
Right.
Yeah.
some that,
Well, I guess I go by the thing I learned from Shirley MacLaine, Out on a Limb. That was my first book of this kind of thing I read. And it is that when the Big Bang happened, and of course, Marianne Williamson said this too, we all became, period. We all became. We aren't the same as we were when the Big Bang happened, and we aren't the same as we're going to be tomorrow, and we aren't the same as we'll be a million years from now.
Evolution.
But we've always been,
Mm-hmm.
and we always will be.
Mhm.
And so as we travel through the universe, through time, and we overlap each other and we come in and out of each other's being and peripheries, all kinds of things happen to us that we're not aware of, that never ever impact on our consciousness in this ordinary world. But it's all there.
And it's science. Energy doesn't disappear, it transforms.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
It can
go
neither be
away.
created nor destroyed.
Yeah.
But you can damn well use it.
Yep.
My energy comes in the form of caffeine. That's how I
Mine too. Mine
Yeah.
too.
and it transforms into work ethic.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Coffee
my guess
in,
is,
work out.
my guess is your work ethic
Mhm.
and your life ethic are very much entwined.
Yeah, both powered by caffeine as well.
Yeah, my addiction to caffeine keeps you alive. So there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Dr. Pepper and cinnamon rolls, my dream.
There
Ooh.
you go.
If you've read my books, you know Dr. Pepper and cinnamon rolls are
Yeah.
the be all to end all.
Yeah. I'm not a Dr. Pepper person, but I'm definitely a cinnamon roll person. I will not turn one
Yeah.
of those.
Well, that's really kind of sad for you, but okay.
Oh.
What else, girls?
Well, I don't know.
Did we share where they can get your books at? We've got all that up there.
Oh, I think we did in the on Facebook. On
Mhm.
Facebook, if you search my name, Glenda Clemens, author, not
Mhm.
Arthur, author.
Arthur?
Yeah, now
Author.
he's a boyfriend, but not the guy, the author. You can see all of my books are on that page, and you can go to Amazon.com and look for Glenda Clemens, and all of my books will be on my author page. You can go to Goodreads and search for Glenda Clemens, and you can see my author page there. Where else? Oh, on Audible, the audio books that have been recorded, you can go on Audible and search for Glenda Clemens, and you'll find my books. Some of them I've narrated, and some of them David has narrated.
Okay. Lovely.
So
Now,
So excited.
Oh.
Sorry.
Just curious if it was related to Samuel.
Oh, apparently, okay, so now here's the deal about Samuel Langhorne Clemens. He never had any children. Nobody down the pike is his.
Oh.
But David's grandmother shared that someone of the family, that he's a cousin's 2 or 3 or 25 or 100,000 times removed.
Right.
He's part of
Okay.
the Clemens family, but not that Clemens family. On my side of the family, I'm the 5th great niece of Davy Crockett.
Mm.
I can't remember how many grandmothers past it was. Mary Washington, her sister was my grandmother, great, many generations. And the Penningtons, if you were in Oklahoma, you would know about Pennington Creek. The Pennington family are on my father's side.
I know that name.
And they were a big deal back when one of the kings was getting chased around in England. They hid him and kept him safe for a couple of years. And there's a castle called Munster Castle over there, but you can tell just with one listen to me, I'm not royalty. So I don't even think that castle has anything to do with me, but I'm descended from that line of Penningtons.
That is cool. I want to do my genealogy someday. My family, I've got family members who've been working on genealogy. I haven't logged in to do it yet, but learning all kinds of cool stuff. We used to, back before the interwebs, we had a book that someone had done research and written a book, and on my dad's side of the family, which was really cool to have and read. And
that's where I started, was one of those books. Yeah,
it was really neat to see. Now it's all online, so there's that. But using, a friend's login, I was able to dig around and just find some really cool stuff, about grandparents and great grandparents, and
maybe they'll talk to you.
Maybe they'll talk to me. I haven't tried yet. I mean, my grandparents I talked to. I haven't actually reached out to my great grandparents, so maybe I should do that and see what they got to say. But I do talk to my grandparents a lot. They keep.
I talk to my mother-in-law.
Yeah, they're definitely handy. My grandmother on my mom's side is actually very instrumental in my shamanic work. So her and I chat all the time.
Cool. Yay. That's cool.
Yeah. My mom, not so much. That's that whole Presbyterian conversation.
Ooh. Yeah, my mother says, "Oh, that's interesting."
That's nice.
Next month I'll be 70, and she'll be a week or two later. She'll be 86, I think. 80, either 86 or 87, something like that.
Well, all right. It's been a great show. Great talking to you ladies again.
Thank you.
Next week, I believe we're tackling spirit attachments. Is that right, Sonia?
That's right. We're going to talk to Seth Michael. I remember now. Yes. Love Seth. You have to call in for that one, Glenda. Seth is an amazing medium, psychic medium. He's a great guy.
Yes.
Cool. Based down in Oregon, so it sounds like he survived the fires. They weren't impacted other than the smoke, so he came out unscathed. But we'll be talking about attachments and souls that haven't moved on. He and I have a pretty crazy shared experience where we were both at a location, and there was a soul that was very distressed in the basement. A young boy didn't realize that he could leave. I mean, he knew he had passed on, but he wasn't aware that he was allowed to. You can go wherever you want now. You're dead. You're free to go. You're looking for your mom. She's on the other side. You gotta get there. You gotta go get her. So he and I had a great experience, kind of helping to put him at ease and give him some hope. And let him know, dude, you can come and go. You can stay here. You can go there. You can go there, come back and visit. Yeah, you got freedom and mobility here that we don't. We're dense. We're matter.
Kind of stuck right here.
We're kind of stuck. You, on the other hand, can do whatever you like. So it was kind of that epiphany moment for him and it gave him some hope, which was it was a profound experience. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah,
that is true.
So we'll probably talk about that too next week. But yeah, he's great, and I know he works on a paranormal team and talks about those experiences that he's had.
He was also one of my original co-hosts with Mystic Moon Cafe, and
And June is another one, Glenda. You'll have to meet Miss June. She co-hosts frequently as well. She's in the process of moving, so she's under a little bit of duress. We never enjoy that, none of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to let my kids take care of that.
Yeah,
I'm just going to die and you guys take care of this.
Mhm.
dying in the middle of my stuff. It's all yours. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it.
All righty. Well, we're at the end. Unless you all have something else you want to discuss or
Nope.
go over. Okay.
No,
Say
I'm good.
wonderful show. Thank you. Thank everybody who watched and or listened. And I don't know. Guess we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah, it's great. Great.
All righty.
Good night, girls.
All right. Well, I will shut us down on live.